Man, I'm still recovering from that great party, Night for Freedom in Manhattan over the weekend. With Mike Cernovich, Gavin McInnes, Stefan Molyneux, Benjamin Owen, lots and lots of other people. Boy, I had a chance to meet a lot of people who are viewers of this channel, readers of the books and articles and everything else. They follow the podcasts. And people are they're so kind and they're so generous when they either write me emails or when they see me in person. They say, Colin, your videos are changing this or changing that. They changed me. They changed my mom and dad. They're changing the world. So every once in a while, I kind of have to remind people that the people that make this channel work, that make these videos work and my books work and the podcast work, that's you. The people who send me the videos, the people who spread them around, the people who support this channel through PayPal or sending stuff into my mailbox. And sometimes really, I'm the guy that just kind of like, goes to a mailbox, picks something out, walks out in the middle of the street and shouts not even at the top of my lung, just kind of looks around and says to the world, hey, did anybody here see this? This looks kind of strange to me. I was thinking about that this morning. About that this morning, and an extraordinary letter, fully documented letter I received. We're gonna see that in a minute. But I was also thinking about it over the weekend at the party when I had a chance to spend some time with a couple from Cincinnati, Johnny and Kathy. Johnny's the one who sent me the story about Judge DeLotte. Now, it was crazy enough when Judge DeLotte was, I'm gonna remind you who she is in a minute. It's crazy enough when a bunch of the fellas broke into Judge DeLotte's home. We had the 911 call. We had the backstory, the whole thing. That was crazy enough. Would have been an interesting story. Johnny did not leave it there. Johnny, there was something, this is what happens to reporters. Something kind of nagging in the back of his head saying, I think there's something else here, something more here than just a bunch of fellas doing a home invasion on one of the richest guys in Cincinnati and his wife, who just happens to be a federal judge, Judge DeLotte. So Johnny kept digging and digging and didn't take long. It's funny. So, I'm going to sound like an old dude now. The digging that Johnny did, however many hours, 1, 2, or 3, would have taken 1, 2, 3 weeks or months before. Going down to the courthouse, going to the law library, looking up Judge DeLotte and all of her decisions. Anyway, so turns out Judge DeLotte, as you recall, she was a pioneer in this whole field of racial profiling. She said, no, cops can't, if there's any racial disparity between the amount of black people you stop and white people you stop, well, we can't have that. That's racial profiling. She wrote a big decision, changed everything in Cincinnati. The decision was used as a precedent. And is there one person in Cincinnati besides her liberal neighbors who have bigger fences than she does? Is there one person in Cincinnati who said, because of Judge DeLotte, Cincinnati is a safer, fuller, richer place? No, because black on white crime, black violence in Cincinnati is just like the rest of the country, wildly out of proportion, and the cops are often just left there standing with their hands tied, wondering what they can do about it since Judge DeLotte tied their hands. Anyway, this is what Johnny all found out. And of course, the great irony, of course, of this judge later becoming a victim of essentially her own decision. You didn't really do that much in the local media in Cincinnati. They didn't really point out that clash between her own decisions and what happened during her personal life. No, all they did in these stories and locally in Cincinnati was to remind everybody that she was really instrumental in criminal justice reform and da. How could this happen to our great jurist, Judge DeLotte? Well, it happened because she was instrumental in creating the seeds of her own almost fatal destruction. We never would have figured that out if not for one viewer, one reader out in good old Cincinnati who just wouldn't let it go. That's what I was thinking this morning when I got an email, this kind of extraordinary email. Starts off simply enough. When it starts off, it was like, okay, we see a lot of these. I don't know why this one's any different. But what this one it's going to start off with this story. She's going to use this reader is going to use this story to take us into some really important places that we don't spend enough time on this channel. Check this one out.
A Texas man kills ex, her husband, and 6 kids. Authorities said 49-year-old David Ray Conley broke into his ex's home through a window, handcuffed her alongside her husband and her 6 young children, and fatally shot each of them in the back of their heads.
Tactical medical deputies entered the home and pronounced the death of 6 children and 2 adults.
Victim Valerie Jackson once dubbed the 49-year-old the best father in the whole world before their relationship soured, forcing her to kick Conley out of her house and change the locks. The slain children are the son of Conley and Valerie Jackson, 13-year-old Nathaniel Conley, and 5 more of her kids. Conley surrendered to authorities late Saturday after exchanging a flurry of gunfire with deputies who discovered the mass killing.
Deputies on scene forced entry into the home and were immediately met with gunfire. The deputies withdrew from the home, held the perimeter of the scene, and awaited the arrival of the high-risk operations unit. Members of the HCSO hostage negotiation team were able to establish contact with the suspect and secured his peaceful surrender.
Court records reveal a tumultuous past between Conley and Valerie Jackson. A scattering of domestic assaults began in 2000 when Conley threatened to kill his then-girlfriend and her child by wrapping an electrical cord around the baby's neck. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison.
Okay, now I'm just going to read from this letter. It's important to note the sister tries to act as if there's a mystery, that there are high levels of domestic violence in the black community. It should be clear to black women more than anyone else just how dangerous black men are. Femicide, I'm not even sure I even heard that word. Femicide? Okay, killing women. And AIDS are the leading causes of premature death for young black women. White women who date black men assume the same or even higher risk factors. This is a couple years old. The July 2003 issue of the American Journal of Public Health published a massive study of spousal homicide. It was conducted by 18 experts in the medical field. The study states, quote, femicide, the homicide of women, is the leading cause of death in the United States among young African American women aged 15 to 45 years old. Most women are murdered by a male partner. A previous issue of the journal published a study showing black males are 33% more likely to kill their spouses if she is white. According to the study, white females married to black males are 12.4 times more. You guys want some numbers? Here they are, people. White females married to black males are 12.4 times more likely to be murdered by their husbands than white females married to white males. The same study shows that white men married to black women are 21 times more likely to be murdered by their wife than white men married to white women. Whoops, calling crystalline kerosene. Swirling. The study shows that white women married to black men have the single highest risk of death by femicide of any married women in the United States. Then she goes on to list the sources. American Journal of Public Health, May 1989, an article by J.A. Mercy. The National Black Women's Health Project has identified women as the #1 health issue for African American women. A study cited in WebMD by Solber and Talaferro reported that spousal homicide among African Americans is 8.4 times greater than for whites. We're going to see some stories about this in a minute, but these numbers are mind-boggling. And when we talk about AIDS, according to the Centers for Disease Control, black men who identify as heterosexual are 15 times more likely to be diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. Black men are also more likely to have HIV/AIDS and not be diagnosed. According to the centers, some more other numbers about sexually transmitted diseases. Black people are 7 times more likely to be diagnosed with chlamydia, 20 times more likely to be diagnosed with gonorrhea, 9 times more likely to be diagnosed with syphilis. All these numbers kind of reinforce each other, right? Black females are over 20 times more likely to be diagnosed with HIV/AIDS than white women. White women who date black men increase their chances astronomically of dying from AIDS. AIDS and homicide are the leading causes of premature death for young black women. The premature death among black females from homicide and AIDS is 3.9 times higher than white women if they're between the ages of 15 and 19, 4.5 times higher than white women who are between the ages of 20 and 24, and 7.3 times higher than white females among those who are 25, 34. Have you guys got enough numbers yet? Are you numbers? People who are desperate for numbers, are you listening? When white women date black men, they assume these astronomical risk factors. Here's another story. I mean, some of these stories I've never even heard. Some of these things I was familiar with, other stories I was not, like this one. White people married to black people are the least satisfied with their relationships. A study at Ohio State University reports, quote, specifically, our results indicate that non-black individuals with black partners have significantly more depressive symptoms and less relationship satisfaction than their counterparts with non-black partners. And then I don't even know if the person who wrote this is a man or a woman. But this person gave me all the documentation, all the links, and why don't we just blow through them here? Blow through a few of them here, to kind of illustrate what we're talking about.
The ex-boyfriend of a pregnant woman who vanished in 2013 is now under arrest for her murder. 21-year-old Kelsey Schelling disappeared in 2013 after traveling from Denver to Pueblo to tell her ex-boyfriend, Dantha Luca, she was pregnant. Her body was never found. Earlier this month, 27-year-old Luca was in custody for armed robbery.
We are hearing from family members after a Lago Vista's woman's body was found in Houston. Valerie Jones' family says they want to stop this from happening to another family. Jones was reported missing back in September. Her body was found buried under some brush and dirt in Houston last week. Her family says she was in an abusive relationship with a man now charged with her death, Jimmy Emanuel. We spoke with her sister, who says Jones was trying to hide from Emanuel before she went missing, but had not gone to her family or even police to help stay safe.
What's your hope for justice?
That my sister didn't die in vain. That women see her story and they reach out for help.
The Albany man who stabbed a 20-year-old woman to death last year has learned his fate, but not without first putting up a fight. And Lynn Falsetti joins us live now with more on just what happened in court this morning. Lynn?
Liz, it was certainly an interesting morning in court. 29-year-old Michael Anderson will spend 45 years to the rest of his life in state prison, but he didn't go quietly. Our cameras were rolling as this outburst played out.
Hurry up and send me. You have a history of escalating. History with this and that and the third and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-
That was the outburst made by Anderson to Judge Stephen Herrick in Albany County Court this morning. On February 3rd, Anderson pleaded guilty to 1 count of second-degree murder and 2 counts of first-degree assault for the stabbing death of Tanette Thomas. On November 26, 2012, Anderson stabbed Thomas repeatedly with a knife at a home on Myrtle Avenue in Albany. He also repeatedly stabbed 2 other victims. We spoke with the victim's father, who was at this morning's sentencing. Here's how he reacted.
Bunch of bull, you know, it's just his games that he try to play. He's still a boy. He ain't grow up to be a man yet, you know. So here it is, you know, 45 years, and I pray to God that he don't come back out. I pray he die up in there.
Well, Anderson also repeatedly threatened members of the victim's family between November 15th and November 20th of 2012. Shaquan Oliver, a co-defendant in this case, was sentenced to 15 years in state prison back in March. We'll hear more from the district attorney on today's sentencing later in our later newscast. Live in the studio, Lynn Falsetti, CBS 6 News.
On the death of a young mother in Brooklyn, police have her husband of 9 months in custody. 22-year-old Tony Wells was found dead yesterday morning in her home on Sterling Place in Crown Heights. Neighbors reportedly heard the woman's young daughter crying. They called police for a wellness check. The body of Tony Wells was found at the bottom of the stairs leading into the basement. The medical examiner now will determine the cause of death.
Up in New York State, a Schenectady man was arrested and later pled guilty for beating his girlfriend to death. He raped and stomped his pregnant girlfriend to death in front of her 4 children. Not to worry, he's going to spend at least 25 years in prison. 25 years asterisk, subject to parole board and governor staying, not being down with the cause of criminal justice reform over the next 25 years. Just nasty business throughout the whole thing. This story got weird because the guy killed he killed his white girlfriend and her 4 kids. I think she might have been pregnant with his kid. But then the 4 kids, that kid died because the unborn child was not past a certain age. I forget what the age is, 24 weeks in utero. It wasn't considered murder. But this story had a weird ending to it. The 4 kids, you get all the relatives going, oh, that's no good, we don't like that, no, not good. The kids are all in foster care. I don't know why they're not being adopted. And this dude up here, he killed his ex-girlfriend, wounded her 2 sisters. And when we ended up with just a fairly typical case of, this is a black guy killing his ex-girlfriend. She kicked him out of the house. She was a school nurse, fully functioning member of society at a school, tracked her down, shot her in the face.
Friends and family say that they are devastated. An AISD school nurse was shot and killed in East Austin.
According to a staff directory, Rhonda Beans had worked at Campbell and Harris elementary schools. Police say this man, Wayman Keith Eason, pointed a handgun and fired several rounds at Beans as she tried to take cover. She died at the hospital. And tonight, her sister told KXAN's Alyssa Gord she wished someone had warned her about their relationship.
He shot her dead on this floor. Family members now fill the home where Rhonda Beans was killed just a day earlier.
Because she's putting in the words, and I'm just bringing them to you. And that's what a little sister do.
Her sister, Vivian Bean, says the man suspected in the murder lived with Rhonda for a while, but then she kicked him out. Police say there was an ongoing domestic dispute between Rhonda and that man.
He was still on the outsides controlling her, even though he didn't live in the inside. And she was fearful. And she had friends here around the clock also helping to protect her. This is not normal.
Vivian lives across the country. She wishes she'd known before what she knows now, that Rhonda felt watched that she was bombarded with calls and texts throughout the day. She hopes that others who see those behaviors intervene.
I talked about this need too, but include domestic violence in that because it has a lot to do with women. Those things go hand in hand.
Rhonda leaves behind 5 brothers and sisters, 2 daughters, and an unborn granddaughter. Not to mention the many neighbors and students she loved being around.
If my sister could be of any assistance or help to you, if you're listening to my mouth, to my words, please protect yourself and get out of an abusive situation. Please.
Alyssa Gord, KXAN News.
The Lone Star Fugitive Task Force installed surveillance at multiple spots east early this morning, and that has helped stop them and to arrest Eason. Domestic violence numbers in Texas do not look very good. The Texas Council on Family Violence tallied 146 women killed in 2016 by an intimate male partner. That includes husbands, boyfriends, and exes. The year before, a record 153 women were killed. The toughest statistic occurs to those who do not get help because of a lack of resources. In Texas, the most recent numbers show 39% of requests were denied.
So I start with a little bit of trepidation in this conversation, in part because I know that some of the critiques of this is the very idea that Western press, that those who are not from these nations, who are not Muslim ourselves, who are not part of these traditions, can look at your article and say, look at how horrible those men or those societies or that religion is. And it's something, it's part of why, for example, we have an underreporting of rape and domestic violence in African American communities, because we know the violence enacted on black men by police, so we often don't call.
Are those enough numbers for you guys? So here we presented lots of numbers and lots of stories. Do the details of the numbers, whether it's 4 times greater, 5 times greater, 6 times greater, some of these numbers we were talking about, does that make a difference whether it's 4 times or 7 times greater? Not for our purposes. Our purposes are to get to a threshold of numbers where we say, oh yeah, this is way out of control and it's way different than what we're hearing on TV from Joy Reid and from NPR and from Terry Gross and from lots and lots of other people who say the black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism and violence. Boy, I read that on Russia. I read that on Al Jazeera the other day. That's why black women are moving to Africa. And whatever rape numbers we have here in America, the rape numbers in Africa are about many, 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 many times higher. Al Jazeera to ABC News doing long stories about the talk and everybody in between. Everybody's down with this cause of black victimization. Everybody's down with the cause of white racism. White people are always messing with black people for no reason whatsoever, and black people are just victims. That's what we're doing here. We're exposing the greatest lie of our generation, the greatest hoax of our lifetimes, the myth of black victimization. In their inner circles, doctors know this, nurses know this, public health experts know this. They know when they turn on the TV and see that black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. They know that a lot of black people are out there acting in incredibly irresponsible ways, from murder to AIDS. They know it. So busy explaining it, they're just afraid to give us just tell us what's happening in a very plain fashion. Because talking plainly about race and violence and crime directed at young people, old people, white people, Asian people, gay people, straight people, men, women, kitties, puppies, turtles, well, that's pretty much guaranteed to make the black kids angry.